and welcome to another edition of Hoops and Gems podcast. I'm your host, David Jones. Want to thank everybody for tuning in as usual. Episode number 2 of season 5. Tonight's show's no different than any other. Got a great lineup of guests. Finally got to meet our first guest for the first time, even though we've followed each other on Twitter for a
Mhm.
while, but we got a chance to link up this weekend at the Western PA Bruins tip-off. Tonight we have Coach Craig Carey from Indiana University of Pennsylvania. For you people that are not familiar with it, it's called IUP, located just outside of Pittsburgh, about 45 minutes to an hour. And should I say, national runner-up?
Yep,
And then,
absolutely.
and for you people that don't understand D2, I'm a huge advocate of D2, D3, NAI. I love D1 just like anybody else, but what I want you people to understand is the PSAC conference is one of the top D2 conferences in the country. For my people down here in the southeast, very comparable to the Peach Belt, very comparable to the Gulf South, very comparable for my people in the Midwest to the MIAA, the Lone Star State Conference, and California's D2 conference. Those are all very strong D2 conferences, and I'm not afraid to say this. For you people that don't know, a lot of these schools is just they're just as good as a number of low D1s. So the misconception of you thinking, oh well, if I don't go D1, I'll just go D2 and kill and average 30. You're not going to do that at IUP. Listen, I'm here to tell you that. I have no shame in saying that as well, because a lot of Coach Carey's players end up transferring up, or he ends up getting a number of D1 drop downs as well. So we're going to kick it off tonight. And how you doing today, Coach Carey?
Doing great. Busy, like you said, with the portal. Busy as always, but doing well.
Absolutely, I can only imagine. And like we were talking about backstage, not only with the portal being busy, there's a lot of coaching changes with which also opens up even more kids being available for you. So now you're but these next well it started last week and you got another
Hmm.
week plus, so
Yep.
you putting in 40 plus hours of talking to potential guys or potential young ladies, excuse me, for
Hmm.
IUP. So tell us a little bit about IUP, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, very, very nice school. We have some of the nicest, facilities in the country. We have arena seats a little over 5,000. We get
Hmm.
really good crowds, really great, community support. They really love women's basketball here. So I think that's another big thing, being low D1 to D2 is, the support you get. You're not going to go to a game and you can hear, the ball bouncing. There's a lot of people in the crowd. They really care about it. You're not in a lot of major cities, so the community, this is their pro team, and they treat them like that here. And our girls are celebrities around town. We just got honored by the mayor of Indiana. They made the eighth IUP Women's Basketball Day. So we get a lot of support, and like you said, I think probably 80% of our roster is transfers. Majority of that
Wow.
being D1 transfers. We've had D1 transfers that started at D1s, and it's just what we sell here is you have opportunity to get your name out there nationally. You can become an All American. We had one this past year, Nisha Weaver, and you're putting together a film for overseas professional teams, agents, all that. You got to have the film, you got to have the stats, but they also want to see if you can win, and that's what we get a lot of players on is you come here, get great film. Our style's fun to play. We play really, really fast. We average close to 80 a game. So everything we do is really geared towards that, and just gives kids an opportunities. We get a lot of D1 transfers, like I said, a lot of D2 kids that are really, really successful, and they turn down D1 offers to come here as well, just to further their career. And it's you can be a shark, in a small pond, or you could go to some of those schools, and no knock to low D1s, but it's a big pond with a lot of fish, and we try to sell. You could be the biggest thing around here, and they're going to treat you as such here. So we have a good thing going right now.
I like that. And let me ask you this, because For people that don't know, before you came to IUP, you were an assistant at West Virginia under your father, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
And, and I always like to ask these questions. I'm sure you took a number of things from your father's coaching style.
Mhm.
When did you realize once you got to IUP that you were coaching a different trajectory? You might take in some of the things, but kind of put your own spin on it, per se.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it was, when I actually got the job my first year, 2 weeks in the school. So I couldn't recruit. They had no incoming players. It was all, they graduated 7 seniors. So it was like, if you could think of a worst case scenario, like I probably wouldn't have beat that because I didn't get to work them out. We had no preseason. They were just playing pickup for practice when I got there. So,
Wow.
my center was, I think, 5'9", 5'10". So, as you know, Power Four, you're talking 6'5", 6'4", 6'3", big, strong girls. Couldn't play like that. So I had to adapt on the fly how we were, guarding the post. Our offense, I moved to more of a 5 out type of, pro style handoffs, ball screens, no one back to the basket. And it just kind of evolved from there. And then I kind of got my bearings. It was honestly the best thing that could have happened because I had to try to figure out what would work, as we were playing. I didn't sub. We had no subs, so I played five for
Wow.
40 minutes. Yeah, and we ended up going 18-10, and I learned a lot through that. I think that, like I said, it was a blessing being my first season as a head coach because I learned so much. And I learned how to push players. I learned how to deal with fatigue a lot. It's getting up and down, up and down. Even though we're on a run, I see them we get a breakaway layup, and I see everyone kind of take that big gasp of breath. Let me burn a timeout right now. So little things like that I learned only playing five. Um, and like I said, you're not going to go back to the basket and try to steal people's lane with a 5'9" center. So I kind of learned that I like that a lot more too, more mobile bigs, to where I can take the shot blockers out, and then I let my guards sometimes post. We'll get downhill. So like I said, it kind of lent me to playing a lot faster. My dad was more of a half court, grinded out type of coach. I'm a little more fast paced. Our defenses are very similar though, kind of smash mouth, cause havoc, get a lot of steals, a lot of deflections, technicals every once in a while. But that's the type of player I like. I like grit. I'd rather tell you to slow down than speed up. So that's the kind of player that I like, and he was the same way. And I think I learned a lot from him, and just the game's evolved since even the early 2000s. The game's evolved so
Yeah.
much. So I think the way I see it has kind of evolved with it.
And I'm glad you just brought up a point. When I think of certain things, like when I watched IUP, like you're one of the top defensive programs in the PSAC, right? And
Mhm.
so, how do you sustain both that at that level, that D2 level, with that roster depth? And it's always a question because, for people that don't know, some of your top players that when you get an All American, just like I know, there's going to be a number of D1s trying to grab her. So how
Yeah,
do you sustain that?
yeah. Yeah, it's all about relationship building. I'm like this with our team. I'm very down to earth with them. I'm very honest with them. I always tell them, be careful what you ask me because I'm gonna tell you the truth. And a lot of people these days don't want to hear the truth. But the way we recruit, we're very honest with them in the recruiting process. I see you as this. When you get here, we're going to work on X, Y, Z, and I think they appreciate that honesty. And when you're kind of around that so much, when because coaches these days are, whether you're in the portal or not, they're recruiting you. So, and that happens with a lot of our players. They kind of can read through that a little bit, and you're going to lose some every once in a while to it. With the NIL. Heck, you can't blame them sometimes with the money packages that are being put together for them. I mean, because some of them, they need the money, their families need money. So I understand, where they come from with that, and that's also why the landscape D2 is starting to change, where you're starting to see NIL money start to creep up here because we have to be competitive. But I think the honesty with them, and they see their game kind of getting elevated. They see the attention that they're getting. And kids these days they enjoy that. They like getting the videos of them, the pictures, the write ups. They're getting on podcasts. They're getting in the newspaper. So I think the publicity that our school is able to give these kids, it has kind of kept us out of that. But now that we just went to a national championship, we're going to be probably top five again next year. They're going to start taking a little more attention to our players, but you gotta constantly recruit 24/7, and that includes your own roster. So you got to always
Yeah.
check in. And my kind of rule of thumb, not against anyone that doesn't get in a ton, but you got to recruit your top seven returners every year, no matter what. And that's throughout the year. That's constantly keeping that relationship good with them. And then whatever filters, but you got to keep that nucleus, because you can always add. You're going to add freshmen, and then in the portal you can kind of plug and play. But you got to keep a nucleus because it's tough to get, because everyone's going portal. It's tough to get a team of 10 out of the portal and you hit on every 10. You can hit
Yeah.
on three or four, but to hit on that many is really, really difficult.
And to the point of what you're talking about, like going to this past season, you beat nationally ranked Fairmont State, and then you turned around and beat top seeded Edinboro.
Mhm.
What did you believe about that team that got you to the championship? Or you felt like, that momentum was going? Because, you had a tough road to get to the championship. It wasn't no cakewalk.
No, no. I mean, even outside of the PSAC, we played Colorado Mesa, who was, I think, at the time like 35-1, hadn't lost in 3 months. So we Winston Salem ended up the year. I think they were top 10 in the country. So played a lot of really tough teams to get there. I think it was, whenever you have a really good player like we did with Shay, it's all about who you put around her. Like she can be so good, but if she's a like a tweener 4.5, which she's really athletic. If you don't have shooting out there, they're just going to double constantly. If you don't
Hmm.
have fours that can cut off of her, they're going to double constantly. So I think it was a year where we had three players that played starter minutes returning. That was the first time I'd ever kind of had that. Kids who I didn't have to reteach everything all over again. Because like I said, my first year I only had five, and then the roster flipped. Next year, I went portal heavy. We got a D1 player, was all region defensive player of the year, but she only had 1 year, so she left. Had to flip the roster again. Did the same thing. Had a girl come for 1 year, was all conference, all region, went professional overseas. Roster flipped again, and then last year was the first year where I got multiple year transfers. So now we returned a lot of those kids this year. They knew everything we were doing. I get a little more in depth with the rotations, a little more in depth with the offense, and we brought in Teresa Maggio, who for the listeners, she was at Tarleton State. She was at used to be IUPUI. I think it's IU Indy now. So she was a
Yes.
D1 kid. Yeah, she was a D1 kid. Came she went for, I think it was 15 on 40% from three. So that's kind of, we surrounded our star player with other really, really good players, and they all kind of bought into the role, which is really hard these days with social media, where they all want to average 20. Just not realistic on good teams. I think we had uh, four guards shoot over 50% from the field. We had, I think it was almost everyone but one shoot at least 44% from the field. So that just means
Mm.
they're taking really good
Wow.
shots. They're making really good decisions. I think we had uh, 14 or 15 games of 17 plus assists. So that just, we were really hard to guard because the team chemistry was really well, and that's a result of returning players. And that's another reason why just constantly kind of evolving your mindset in the portal age, because it's always changing. You got to have multiple year transfers if you're going to take a bunch of transfers, because they got to be the nucleus the next year. And then you just if you're going to go portal heavy, you got to get the multiple year kids as well as the for sure first team conference 1 year kids.
Yeah.
So it's a good mixture, and I think we kind of got it what we like down now. So we're hoping to repeat the success.
So, and I'm glad you just brought that up. So, even like this past weekend, when you're evaluating a prospect on a D2 level, what separates a player who fits the IUP system versus one who has talent but won't translate? And I always like
Hmm.
to ask this because, a lot of people think that when you're watching, oh, I got to put up 20 or 30, but what
Hmm.
is it that you're actually looking for to say that's an IUP type of kid?
Yeah, I think number one is their motor. Do they play really hard? I think that stands out more than anything because the portal and even the when I was at West Virginia, the top 100 rankings are filled with potential, but potential gets you fired in a job that you have to win. So that can
Yeah.
be really dangerous. That can be fool's gold sometimes if the player doesn't have the mindset to want to get better, to want to work hard, to listen. You can go get 20, but if you give up 21, we're down one. And a
Yeah.
lot of kids don't get that. So you got to be able to play both sides. And like I'll bring up Teresa again, and she'll tell you herself, not a great individual defender, great team defender. She had nine in the in the Elite Eight. She had 9 steals, and it's because she plays team defense. She knows if this girl's really good one on one, I'm gonna force her baseline, my helps baseline, so she doesn't give up, drive kick threes because she plays team defense, and she's got really good hands. She's got the stuff I can't teach. That's where really what I'm looking for. Like, do you have long arms? Are you active? Do you talk? Do you play hard? Do you try to rebound? Not even if you get a bunch of rebounds, because you like 6'3" in high school, of course you're going to get rebounds. You're taller than everybody. But at
Yeah.
our level, there's not a lot of 6'3". So do you try? Will you get in there and stick your nose in there and battle? That can win you games sometimes. And we won a lot of games just being a little more hard nosed than people. Diving on the floor. Of course, if you can score, everyone's going to be looking at you. But that's kind of the things that set you apart. Because if you don't have a certain skill set, you're not going to be getting recruited anyway, and that's just the harsh reality of it. So, I like I tell my nephews, they're starting to do AAU now. Like, if you can't shoot, I probably wouldn't shoot a bunch because now everyone knows you can't shoot. If you can't dribble and you're just a shooter, I would work on my footwork into shots, and then when I'm by myself in the gym, I'm working on my weaknesses. But don't show your weaknesses in games because then everyone's going to be like, "Oh, actually, she's not a real strong she's not a real strong defender. She's not a real strong shooter. She can't all she does is shoot, but she can't shoot. But play to your strengths. When you get here, we'll work on your weaknesses. That's where our skill development. That's something that we do really well because that's kind of how I got into coaching, was skill development. So I'm not worried about what your weaknesses are. Like, what are your strengths? What can you do? Just do what you do. Be who you are. It's my job as a coach to tailor what our system, what we're going to do around your skill set. So I'm not going to, if you can't shoot, I'm not going to run you off staggers. But if you can get downhill, I'm going to put shooters around you and let you get to your strong hand and let you create. So, when you're looking at that, length is always going to translate, size is always going to translate. But when you really got to sit there and, when you're watching a game and trying to get a good read on a kid, it's the little things about, talking, playing hard. Are they good teammates? If the teammate doesn't catch a pass, do they just jog back on defense because they're upset? Like that. That's the stuff. And like for me, I can't do. I don't care how good you are. And we've had some kids that were first team all conference kids that this is probably not the best spot for you because of that. And we got better after. And a lot of people, you take the heat in the moment because like, why would you let her go? She's so good. But then the next year, you get your players with your mindset and you win 6 more games, and everyone's like, "Oh, okay, I understand now."
That fits your culture per se.
Absolutely,
And,
absolutely.
I'm glad we're talking about that. And I like to ask this question. Every coach gets this question because of the importance of it. How important is it for somebody to come into your program, especially with you being a defensive program as well, to know the shell drill?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of high school kids don't believe it. We probably do that at least if we have frat practices, and we probably do it 3 to 4. And then we do variants of it where it's not actually shell, but we'll go, all right, this is what we're working on, and it's just half the floor, and we're doing it's still shell. They don't know it's still shell. You kind of trick them so they don't get oh gosh, we're doing it again. But yeah, I mean that's half court defense. That's what half court defense is,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
that's going to be probably 80% of the game. And we try to preach a lot is playing really physical without fouling, and a lot of really all basketball, but a lot of like high D2, low D1. It's a foul game, and if you can stay out of giving up 15 foul shots, 20 foul shots, make them have to actually score. Then you're just relying on boxing out, and then we get them and run. So um, you know That's a big thing, and it starts in practice, and you have to constantly drill it because bad habits are easy to form. And our level, you'll play the number three team in the country, and then you'll play a team with three wins, and the habits you get against the teams that you're supposed to beat are the ones you carry over in the good games. So our fans think it's entertaining because we'll be up 30, and I'm really coaching them hard. I'm taking timeouts because they scored two times in a row. Like, I'm really getting on the players. It's because I know what is coming up on the schedule. I know we're about to play a team that if you don't step back on box outs, they are going to get the offensive rebound and score. If you just go for steals and try to steal it from them because they're from the ball, a good player is going to go right by you and get our center in foul trouble. So the little things like that, those are the habits in practice. Those are the habits when up 50 or down 50, you're going to get coached. I rarely look at the scoreboard except for look to check the time. And once it starts getting time, then I'll check time and score. But we play like it's a 1 point game no matter the score, up big, down big, and it takes a certain personality to be able to do that, and you have to recruit as such. And we do more skill development as part of the offensive sets than actually working on offense in practice. Most practice is defense and scout, and once we get defense and scout, that's going to give you 10 to 18 points a game off of turnovers and fouls off of steals. So, the rest of it, if you have a good defense, it's a race to like 60, a race to 65. It's not that hard to get 60 or 65 in most games. So that's kind of the culture we get. And then, I got to give a trade-off. I let them play super free on offense because we're so structured on defense. So it's a give and take. You can't play super physical and trap and all that stuff on defense and then have them walk the ball up the floor on offense. So I drive myself crazy sometimes letting them take some transition threes, all that, but they have fun in that. So I get what I want on defense. And, like I said, we were averaging close to 80 this year. So again, you're kind of training your mind to the new age of player to where, okay, I can we'll do that. So they'll do this. And they had a good time with it this year.
And let me ask you this. So a lot of elite D2 recruits are overlooked coming out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
How do you identify them early? Because, the saying is if they're considered to be an elite D2 or a high level D2, 9 times out of 10, that means a lot of the D1s are going to
Mm-hmm.
want them as
Yeah.
well. So, how do you identify them and then how do you recruit them? Because you're basically battling against
Mm-hmm.
D1s to get, these type of players.
Yeah, I think, a lot of times the only difference between like a low D1 and a D2 is like an inch or two. So a lot of times they won't recruit a really, really good player just because they're 6 foot and not 6'2" or 6'3".
Hmm.
Well, I just watched her play two 6'3" girls and she killed them. So I don't really care what size you are. And that's something that I learned at West Virginia with my dad. We a lot of the times our best centers were undersized centers because they were so mean and physical and played hard and would run the floor, would do the dirty work. So I don't get caught up so much in size as ability. If you can play, you can play. I don't care what size you are. If you're getting rebounds against like elite athletes, elite competition in AAU, well, that's going to translate. So I don't. You could be 5'10", but you play like you're 6'3". So I'm good with that. We have some players like our threes are sometimes bigger than our centers. Well, because that three don't play like a center, and they're probably
Yeah.
thinking, well, she's not physical enough at her size to play D1. But like, well, it's because she's not a post player. It's because she's a guard. Just
Hmm.
because she don't quite have and some kids grow into their bodies a little bit later. So, she may be a little uncoordinated, but wait till you give her a year or two in the weight room to kind of learn her body and skill develop her a little bit. And then that's where you see these jumps where where'd she come from? Like, well, you were at her games too. You just didn't. She wasn't popping to you because she wasn't getting 20 in that game, but she knew her role with that team. So there's a lot of different variables. But I think the size thing is the biggest one. I think people get caught up in the size, and then the other thing is I think a lot of people, I call it Twitter recruiting, where they see someone offer someone, so then everyone just offers them, and
Oh,
they didn't actually see them play. Yeah, they never actually saw him play. So,
Hmm.
we kind of, I hate to say it, but we'll be at AU events. I'm like, oh, she's playing good. Oh no, someone's going to offer, then everyone's going to know about her.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, that I think that's the biggest thing. And when we were at West Virginia, we weren't, you're not considered like a blue blood. So we had to do kind of some, you really had to dig to get some players that were really good there. And, it kind of translated to here because, you're doing the same thing. You're getting the kids from small schools that don't go to the academies, per se, kids that are overlooked. Like I said, late bloomers. I know our All American this year, Shay. She was a little heavier in high school, so they didn't think she had a motor. But I saw her jump a few times. I was like, oh, if she would come here and work, she would be crazy. And that's exactly what happened. She came here, worked really, really hard. We pushed her really, really hard. And I think a big thing is just not, you can't compromise with work ethic, with players, because everyone would be really good if you could just go in the gym and shoot the ball around a couple times. Like, no, you got to go full speed for 30 minutes, an hour, constantly. You got to get in the weight room. You got to eat right. You got to change everything about your life, and then just all the results take care of themselves. And that's exactly what happened with her. And a lot of the players that we get, they kind of they see that. And I really think it started with Ramina Henderson, who was originally out of New Jersey, but she was at Southeast Missouri, and she was really the first D1 player I got. And she started some games there, but they didn't have a good year that year, so she wanted to come here, have a chance to win. And I just preached to her. Like, I think she shot 20, it was like 23, 26% from three. I was like, listen, like, I know you don't know me, because portal recruiting is 2 weeks. I mean, it's hard to
Yeah.
build a relationship like that. I'm like, I know you don't know me, but you got to trust me. Like, this is the plan I have for you. Come here. We're going to get your 3-pointer up to mid 30s. We're going to get your field goals up to high 40s, maybe 50s. You'll be one of the best defenders. And, it kind of all happened. She came here and worked hard. It all happened. Signed a contract, got great money overseas, still playing. And that was kind of the what turned it for everyone, because everyone saw that blueprint. And that's just come here and work hard. Good things will happen for you. And it's no different for the high school kids, because you have those upperclassmen to look at now and see how hard they work. Like, oh, okay, like, yeah, I remember her when she played. Like, she wasn't as good as she is now. Like, maybe if I just work like her, then it's just kind of, you just roll over the senior into the junior, senior into the junior, and you finally got a team that you can kind of be consistent with throughout the years.
And I'm glad you brought some of that up. And you've mentioned it a little bit as we've been talking. So, how big is player development at IUP?
Really big, really big. Like I said, that's how I started into coaching in college, because I played for a year under Bob Huggins. So I got sick, had to quit playing. I was sick for like 8 months, and like at that level, you don't run for 8 months. You're not. There's no way you can come back.
Yeah.
So from there, my dad was a coach at West Virginia, so I started getting in the gym, with his players, working them out a little bit. Then I'd started working some of the men's players there out a little bit, and I kind of liked that. So I thought that kind of was where my path was going to be. I had never really thought about getting into the coaching side. I was going to be a player development. And then just, a job opened up. I got the job there, and that was my main job on staff as an assistant coach, was player development. So I ran
Okay.
all the player development stuff at West Virginia. Kaiser Gonzalez, she went fourth overall. I worked her out every day. So that kind of gave me a lot of confidence. Like, okay, like maybe what I'm doing, like, it's working. Then I got here, and we probably do, man, at least I'd say half an hour a day in skill work. Um, that's guards, post, everybody. We have our posts do guard work, and we have a lot of our guards do post work some, because we'll invert. We do a lot of 5-out stuff, so our posts have to be able to handle the ball and pass, and a lot of them can shoot. I think we had two posts shoot over 40% from three, and then I think another one like in the mid 30s. Um, which just creates a lot more havoc on offense for us. So we have to constantly drill that. So yeah, we're every day we do it, and like everything else, like we probably practice for an hour and a half, because we practice like we play. It's really fast paced. I don't do like I do on here, where I talk constantly. Like uh, it's very like boom boom boom. You do something wrong, hold up. this is what you need to do. All right, let's go, because we play like that. So
Hmm.
hour and a half, and half of that is skill work. Could be in the beginning, could be after, but yeah, we get after it in skill work, and our I'd rather have good players, not good plays. And when you get down into March, you're so well scouted. It don't matter what you run because the other team has scouted you so well. Only 30% of your plays are even going to work. They're going to take you out of every action like we do, like defensively. Like, we're going to take you out of your action. So how good are your players? And we try to get our players to where, we run this set. All right, it doesn't work. Right, here's the action out of that, and we're into a ball screen action, up screen. We flow
Some
right
more
into
read and
it.
react, right?
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
want them to
yeah,
be able to, because I can't sit there. It's not chess. I can't
yeah.
sit there and, hey, this is exactly what the defense is going to do. They may be out of a timeout and trap now. So where does
Hmm.
your mind go in that? So we have male practice players, which is super beneficial. So they go against guys every day in practice, and we'll switch it up with the guys. Like, we go live a lot. Even the players who don't, aren't in the constant rotation. Like, if you don't play more than 10 minutes the night before, you go live the next day against the practice guys. The high
Okay.
minutes kids will just go through scout. We'll get them some skill work on the other end, but that's part of the player piece too. Is just because you're not getting in doesn't mean there won't be an injury. And I need you. Like, now you
Yeah.
got to play 20 minutes. Are you ready? And that's all player development stuff. We watch a lot of film on ourselves, as well as scout. So we'll split up guards, posts, and I'm more, we're going, it's more like, all right, pause. Here's the nail defender. They're going weak side help from the bottom. Like, what should the read be? And like, they got to tell me, like, she's peeling early, so we got a quick kick. Like, okay, yeah, as soon as their hips dive to you, you don't need an extra dribble because she's already committed. Like, there's no way she can shift her weight back out to the wing. So it's just a quick punch, kick out to the wide open three. And it's like, okay, she rolled, you should have dragged up because you have a wide open shot. So that's and that leads to getting 20 assists in games. We had probably 5 or 6 games with 20 assists, and that's the film work, because you can't expect. I think my early in coaching, I kind of expected them to know stuff, and just because you know what they're supposed to do doesn't mean they do. It's on you as a coach to break everything down. Like, there's no stone unturned. So then, when they get into the game, it's nothing they haven't seen before, whether it's, full court traps, gap, pack line, hard hedges. As soon as a hard hedge, our posts know to just turn around, short roll, and our guards just throw right over top. And we work on our guard skills with our bigs. So they're getting downhill, making plays as well. So yeah, like I said, I spend a lot of time on player development because they make me look smart when my plays don't work. People don't know when the play's supposed to stop. They
Yeah.
just know we scored. So yeah, that's real big, and I think that helps us get kids too, because they like that part of it, being developed.
Let me ask you this. As we start to wrap this up, you're one win away from the national championship. You're the runner-up. Does that make you hungrier for this upcoming season? Does that change the expectation? Is that more a situation where you're going to have a bigger target on your back? What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I think it's all the above. I think, in the PSAC, we've always had a target on our back, but I think now that you get that national recognition, you'll have a lot of teams wanting to play you. And, as far as, around here, the community really loved it. And, it's one of those things where now, are they going to expect it every year? But, I do. I think, obviously it's really, really hard. It's a crazy road to get there. Our
Yeah.
region's loaded every year. So, it's really hard to get there. But, the way I coach and approach it, like, I expect to win every game. Even though I know that's not realistic, and there's really, really good coaches, really, really good teams, but that's kind of how our team approaches it. How good you're going to be next year starts right now, and our returners got to be working on their game. They got to be getting ready, and we got to get in the portal and replenish the roster. And it's just every year it's the same thing, and but you can't sacrifice what got you to the success that got us there this year. It was the hard work, it was the togetherness, the team chemistry, and you got to build off that. And it doesn't hurt recruiting to do what we did. It definitely helps, gets the name out there, because like you said, not a lot of people know about us, but that gets the name out nationally. And yeah, we're on some really good players, and we expect to be right there in the running again. And once you get into March, you just try to have your team as prepared for any situation as possible because it's all matchups at that point. And you only get one crack at it, so you got to be mentally prepared. You got to be battle tested at that point, and I think that gave us a lot of confidence in big games. Because we in the past kind of the name on the jersey got to some of the players in the
Yeah.
program because but now we're the name on the jersey. So you gotta realize that other team, if they beat you, their season's made. Doesn't matter if they win another game, they just beat the number two team in the country, and that's the reality of it. And that's why you got to recruit kids that want that. They don't shy away from it. Like I said, we get some technicals on our team sometimes because we have some warriors, but like I always say, I would much rather that.
Yeah.
If I go down a dark alley, I want 10 of my players walking behind me that aren't scared to go down there with me. And that's how we recruit. You got to have that. And that's why in the recruiting process we don't shy away from it. We are what we are. Either you're on board or you're not. It's there's different ways to do it, and our way is not the only way. It's not the correct way, but it's our way. And our players love it, and the recruits that we get, they really embrace it. The town loves it. They get a kick out of it sometimes. The aggressiveness, the trash talking, the back and forth. They love it. So it's a good spot. I think we're in a good spot next year as well, and we're going to try to keep it going.
Last question for you. This is your time to shine right here. Why IUP? For anybody that's watching, whether it's recruit wise, whether it's prep kids, or high school,
Mhm.
JUCO, portal kids, why IUP?
I think it's rare, in college and in life to find a situation that can kind of check all boxes for what you're looking for. I think we have a great academics here at IUP. We have a beautiful campus. Our facilities are second to none, and you're going to win here. And I think the big sell here is, you know, does your end goal to get to the NIT. Nothing wrong with the NIT. When I was at West Virginia, we played in it. But do you want more for yourself? Do you want to get that national recognition? Do you want to play for national championships? Do you want to be All American? Because a lot of it's very rare for a mid major to ever get on an All American team to ever get recognized nationally. Very very rare. I mean, you look at the WNBA draft. Some of those mid majors are better than those kids that were drafted.
Yeah.
No shade to them, but they just don't. You don't get looked at like that. But at this level, for us, you do. We have the name, we have the resources, we have the funding, we have everything you need here, and then we're kind of a factory right now for putting kids professional overseas. So we're getting the looks from the agents, we're getting looks from the European teams. We've had players in Ireland, over in Europe, all over the place. So you can kind of get the best of both worlds. You'll get developed here. You win a lot of games, and then once you graduate from here, you have a great degree, and then you'll have an option to go, professional overseas. And that's all I want is, for our players to be fulfilled, that they got everything out of college that they could. Now they can go make money, and hopefully send me a little bit. They never do. I'm waiting. I'm waiting for one of them to. But yeah, that's what I get the enjoyment out of coaching. The winning's great, the recognition is great, but I like seeing how successful they are. That I feel like I did right by them.
Absolutely. Hey man, listen, I knew what type of program you had, and when we finally got a chance to link up this weekend, one of the first things I said is, hey man, would you come on the show to talk about the type of program? With me being from Pittsburgh, of course
Hmm.
I know where
Right,
IUP is, and
right.
I knew what type of program it was. And then with me moving down to Atlanta and seeing the type of D2 basketball, the first thing I said is, oh, this is the way the PSAC is back home.
Hmm. Right.
And people down here were like, I'm not too familiar with the PSAC, and I always compare it to the Peach Belt. I said, well, it's just like the Peach Belt. I said,
Hmm.
very competitive. A lot of quality teams, a lot of players move up or they get D1 drop downs. I said this is a high quality basketball, and by you opening up a lot of eyes by making it to the championship, now a lot more people will know who you are when you're out during live period
Right.
in these upcoming months. And so,
Hmm.
even my next guest, I'm sure my next guest will definitely know who you are as well. But hey, man, I want to appreciate everything that you brought to this show. This won't be the last time you're on this show, and
For
I know
sure.
we'll see each other a number
Oh
of
yeah.
times over these next couple of months,
Oh
over
yeah.
a number of events. And then,
Hmm.
we always like to pick each other's brains about
Yep.
kids. So,
Hmm.
absolutely, man, I appreciate you, and we'll definitely be talking soon, okay?
For sure. I appreciate you. Thanks for having me on.
Anytime. You have a good one, Coach Carey,
All
okay?
right. We'll see you. Bye.
All right. Listen, when we talk about quality coaches, that's one of them. And, I use this platform for a number of reasons. Yes, I have power fours on here. Yes, I have mid majors on here and low D1s. I have JUCO coaches, but a lot of times, a lot of people will skip over D2 and D3 for whatever reason, or they have the D1 mentality. And I get, if you're that good, go get it. But with a lot of these kids, to understand, when you go to a place like IUP, you may not play right away because that's a very good team. And again, I'll say it again, they can beat a number of those low major teams. They're that good. And I just feel like it's on my heart to bring out these type of D2 programs where you need to take a look. If it's a situation where, do you want to sit at a mid major or power four, or get your player development up, which is he's very good at, and then possibly transfer back up. Whether it's the JUCO route, whether it's the D2 NAI or D3 route, whatever works for you. I'm not here to pick whatever side is the best fit, because that's what it is. You and your family have to make that decision as what's the best fit for you guys. So, I look at this, and this next coach, it's even more of what I holler and scream about. Good friend of mine, man, Coach Mike, what's going on, brother? How you doing? Can you hear me? Coach Mike, what's going on, brother? How you doing?
Hey David, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good,
I
man.
can't hear you too well though.
You can't hear me?
Let me see.
It seems like we got like a 2 or 3 second delay.
Let me.
I'm good, man. I'm good, man. You can't hear me?
I hear you on my phone, but not on the laptop. So hold on. Let me.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me see. You can hear me though.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Hear you
I could
perfect.
hear you with Coach Carey, but I couldn't. I can't hear you. Trying to hear you now. Once Coach Carey went out, the sound went out on my laptop.
I hear you. Yeah, I hear you perfect when you're talking, but it seems like when I'm talking to you, it seems like it's hitting your laptop like 2 or 3 seconds later.
Some audio device. See. Hmm. Hold on one second.
And Bobby said you sound good online. You do sound good. It's just a delay when I'm talking to you. It seems like you're not getting it for like 2 or 3 seconds.
Let me jump out and jump back in.
Okay, no problem. While we're waiting on Coach Mike to come back, listen, a- another accomplished coach, and I always like to bring coaches on from all over. So for people that don't know about DME, DME is one of the premier prep programs in the country. And it's a testament they won the national championship this year. So, there's a lot of tough teams down there in Florida. They're based out of Daytona Beach, and you have a plethora of good schools down there as well, and they play that national schedule, and that's what we're going to talk about once he comes back. Let's see if he's back here.
Hey, David.
Yep. Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Yep,
Perfect.
there we go. Yep, yeah, that delay is gone. So while you were gone, I was just telling people about DME being based in Daytona Beach and you playing the national schedule. Man, tell us about DMEs for the people that don't know, and then we'll get some more into the DME culture and what you expect, and then going forward after winning the national championship, man.
Yeah, man. Well, with DME, obviously, we're in Daytona Beach. We're a sports academy with about 250 students, boys and girls. We got baseball, girls volleyball, um, soccer, girls and boys soccer, and then obviously about 90 boys basketball players and about 33 girls basketball players this year. So we got girls from all over the world, from ages 13 to 18 or 19, and so it's a fun journey every year with a new group of girls, to try to help them reach their goals and learn more about them and their families and their background. And we've gotten to a point where we're very fortunate where we can be very selective about the kids we pour into and invest in, and we really do our due diligence with the type of families and in the young ladies that we allow to our program.
Let me ask you. DME competes at that elite prep level down there in Florida, against the teams like Mount Verde and IMG. How do you define success for these young girls beyond wins and losses?
Yeah, that's a good question. Obviously, the recruitment is what most of the families are coming for, right? I think that the first step is always, can we find your niche? What are the three things that you do to demand a scholarship? What is your role? What is your lane? What's your meal ticket? Obviously, we work on your weaknesses, but we try to hide them in the games, and I think we do that probably as well as anybody. When you look at the kids we've had, um, we get the most out of our girls. Sometimes I think early on, maybe our kids were getting recruited a little too high when we first started, just because they played so well in the system we had. And now, as the years have gone on, the kids have gotten more talented, and more advanced before we get them. And you know, I think that the success is obviously just preparing them for the next level, preparing them for life, being able to be away from their families in high school and learn to make the right decisions every day. That's hard as a grown man, even to wake up every day and just make the right decisions. Um, from what you eat to what you use your free time to do. Obviously, how hard you work on the court and in the weight room, in the classroom. So, I think we do a pretty good job of preparing the kids for the next level, not just basketball wise, but just to be ready for peer pressure at the next level when you're in college and you're trying to be able to say no, and also just stay focused on the task at hand of being a student athlete.
So you've been building the girls program at DME pretty much since the inception. And so what's changed most about the talent coming in now versus the early years?
Yeah, I think the early years we took a lot of, kids took a lot of chances on us. We took chances on kids, and we started with six girls in 2017. And so to play I think we played a 32 game schedule that year, which was a blessing because you're one injury away from having kids basically lose out on their freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year. Now to the point where we have size at every team we have. We have three teams. We have post players for every team, and we have point guards for every team. So every team is functionable. They all play a challenging schedule and get game experience. Um, this year's probably the most talented group I've had from top to bottom. When you look at even our seventh and eighth graders, I mean, we have some really special middle school kids in the program that people don't know yet. Obviously, they have the potential to become national team players in due time once they mature a little bit physically. And they have great role models, in the seniors, like Gigi Battle and Shakai and Stur Ubaka. A lot of these seniors have been able to kind of show the young kids the ropes and how to be a pro, really, how to approach every day with the mindset of trying to get better. And so it's been a contagious atmosphere for all our young ladies, where you always got someone in the program that can push you, someone that's better than you. And so every day you can't really get too content with where you're at as a player, because you can look right over to the left of you or the right of you and see a kid that is just as good or better than you. So I think that's been something that I love. I got a really good coaching staff, a great strength coach who was at the Division I level for 5 years at Southern Miss, who works with our girls. So we got the infrastructure in place to make sure that these kids maximize every day.
And that leads right into my next question. When you go to a DME, it's with the understanding, yes, you're trying to get better, you're trying to play against elite competition, but it's also the player development piece on it. Let's talk some about the player development when you come to DME, and what does that look like for these young ladies, because a number of them are have aspirations of going D1, and DME is the segue to get there. So what does that player development look like?
Yeah, I think in postseason and preseason, that's pretty much what we focus on. Um, we'll break it into different parts of the year, obviously, and then prioritize certain areas of your game depending on where we're at in the year. In the preseason, we're going to work a lot on shooting your mechanics, your footwork, your ball handling, your change of direction moves, your change of speeds, um, footwork out of the post, mid post, from the wing. Um, and then we also will put in some structure where you're learning how to come off a pick and roll with different types of coverages, different types of reads, try to teach the kids spacing, right? So there's a lot to the player development that is more than just, a ball and a player and working on dribbling through cones. So, we really try to implement uh, live game scenarios as well, and teaching them how to make reads, um, how to you know cut properly. A lot of girls don't know how to cut. Boys, we grew up playing football outside and stutter stepping and cutting and running routes, and girls don't really do that. So teaching them how to move and be precise with their steps and their footwork and their angles. There's a lot of little details that go into things, and we do a really good job of breaking stuff down to the smallest details and trying to figure out what the root is that maybe a player is struggling with, and where's that. If it's your ball handling, is it the rhythm of the ball hitting the floor with your inside foot? You can't really have a good pull up jumper if that ball isn't being slammed into the ground with that inside foot. For example. So a lot of footwork, a lot of angles and changing directions, obviously with the ball, but without the ball as well.
So you said you've been in Inception since 2017. Um, can you just give us an idea of how many kids you've placed, no matter if it's D1, D2, D3? What does that look like at DME?
Yeah, we've had every girl for the most part. I would say maybe there's about 5 to 10 girls in those 8 years of existence that maybe didn't go and play after high school. Some of those might have been injuries, some might have been being homesick, some might not have wanted to go to the level that they had an opportunity to play at. But for the most part, our placement is really, really good. I would say our strength is obviously in the Division 1 level. We probably had between the junior college jamboree we ran and preseason in September, we usually get about 75 to 100 Division 1 schools in the building to take a look at our girls. Division 2 kids, we've had kids on our second and third teams go Division 2 and even Division 1. We actually had our uh, first senior from Qatar last year go to Embry Riddle on a full scholarship. She was our third team starting point guard, and she played 20 minutes a game for Embry Riddle this year, and they went to the NCAA tournament. So, we've been able to have a lot of success stories with a lot of different kids, international kids, American kids, at all levels.
Yeah, and for people that don't know, Embry Riddle is a very high academic D2 school. Um, for my people in Atlanta, it's on that level of Emory, except they play on the D2 level. A very good high academic school, so that's the place where you don't just blink at and say, "Oh, well, it's just high academic." No, they have a good program there at Embry Riddle as well, right there in
Yeah.
Daytona. Let me ask this as well, because I mean, we this is our time of the year where we're going to bump into each other probably once or twice or three times. When we go out, what are you looking for? Because I mean, you're out there scouting just like you're a college evaluator. What are you looking for when you see somebody in whatever live period it is that you say that's a DME kid that I'd like to have?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously you want to see a kid with a extreme confidence level, a toughness, a love for the game, a love to compete on every possession. Um, Obviously you want to see skill and talent. Um, but at the end of the day, I think which the first thing you look for is, do they know how to compete? Because like you said, when you play, our second team plays the Florida junior colleges. Our first team plays, Montverde and IMG and all our rivals, that are some of the best teams in the country. Um, you want to have kids that, are ready to compete at that level physically. I feel like from a coaching standpoint, we can control the game and manage the game to a level of making sure we execute, making sure we know what a good shot is, know what the other team's running, knowing kids' tendencies and weaknesses and strengths, and um, but you can't really control the competitive spirit of a kid, and also the confidence and poise and just the attention to detail. I think in a lot of games, if you can keep teams out of transition, um, defensive rebound and take care of the ball, you got a chance. So there's a lot that just knowing how to compete on that level is the first thing that we look at. And we've taken a lot of kids that fly under the radar. You put me on to Shikai a couple years before we even took Shikai, and and she was just a kid in Louisiana that was known by some people, but not to the level of where everyone was banging down her door. And we were able to win with her playing a huge role for us for 2 years, and she then became a household name. So the name, the number next to their name, doesn't necessarily dictate who we um, choose to recruit. Is more of, do they know how to play, and how hard do they play, and how much can you tell that they enjoy the game of basketball.
You touched something, and yes, you mentioned Sakai, and a player like Sakai, it was never a question of could she play. It was never that. I
Yeah.
mean, again, we were out. We were at
Yeah.
Run for the Roses when we first
Yeah.
met, and I mentioned that to you. And I
Yeah.
always felt like the only thing that was missing for Sakai, and I want to be clear when I say this, this is no shot at any local school, but when you play on that national level that you play on, when you have that type of player, like you said it best, she's going to be very well known within the region. But when you go to a DME or you go to one of these other top prep programs where you guys are playing extensively in some of the top tournaments all over the country, and almost every game you go to, whether even before we even start to name tournaments, I'll go to people come, what, how many, about 60 to 70 or 80 coaches come to DME in September?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So just that in itself, you're not going to get. And again, you want let me say this: you'll get very few public schools like that where they're going to get 60, 70, 80 coaches in September. And again, before anybody cuts my head off, I know there are some schools that have that type of resume, yes, but it's the expectation at a DME. It's the expectation at some of these other top preps. That's why kids go there. They build their name in ninth and 10th grade, and a lot of times they're playing like Shakai. She played for Sci-Fair. If you don't know Sci-Fair, you're living under a rock.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's a matter of when you take playing summers for Sci-Fair, and then you're playing fall for DME, yes, you're a household name now. There's no
Yeah.
other ifs, ands, or buts. It's a great mixture to play. If you're playing EYBL and DME, or if you're playing Under Armour, or one of the top elite circuits, along with a national prep. Let's be honest, Mike. That's the blueprint to get what these kids are looking for. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot that obviously with kids, not only Shikai, but a lot of the kids we get, um, you know, as much exposure as you can get, you can also get real feedback too, you
Yeah.
know. And so, Shikai, um, as a junior to now, the maturity level, the being on the biggest stages of high school basketball and AAU all year round, you know, uh, you're going to have some failures and shortcomings at times, but you know, when it counts most, at the end of her senior year, she showed huge growth in big games, and also just being more comfortable on those
Mhm.
stages, because everyone has dreams and aspirations of playing in Final Fours, Sweet 16s, conference championship games. You know, you really can't simulate it, but having a baseline full of coaches dissecting your game and then being able to give you real feedback on what they see, not against scrubs either. They're watching you play another high caliber player at your position. And so, you get good feedback from the college coaches, and then we just go back to the drawing board and just keep working and continue to try to catch somebody every day.
And I want to expound on that a little bit because the way you have it set up, you have your you have your players going against JUCO players. You have your kids going up against some of the top players in the country, whether it's tip-off tournaments, whether it's She Got Game, or whether it's any of the premier tournaments, some of the New Year's tournaments, some of the Martin Luther King tournaments, and then
Yeah.
you get to Chipotle and you're playing like by the time you get to February or March, you know who DME is, you know who these top programs are because there's now they're being splattered on TV as well. So on top of college and TV, I want to be careful on that. That's a nice add-on, yes,
Yeah.
but I'll stick to Shikai and I'll add Gigi in there as well. When you have those type of kids and they're playing against, like you said, some of the top players in the country, whether it be a top JUCO at a JUCO jamboree
Yeah.
that you may host, because we all know Florida has some of the top JUCOs for women in the country.
Yeah.
You're putting them up against them. You're putting them up against the Mount Ver's, the IMGs, who also have a number of D1 players, against the Long Island Lutherans. Like, you're playing a killer schedule. So by the time these young ladies get to D1 or wherever their destination is, they're battle tested. They're ready.
Yep. Yep. And the thing that I think that you can't put a price tag on is when they go to college. Um, it's crazy. When you go to college and you got to get into a competitive practice environment, I think that that's something too that Shakai and Gigi were going against, Tamani Harris, who's a top 60 kid in her
Yeah.
grade, going against Tessa Gladio, who's going to UMass. You're going against Division 1 kids in your practice. So even if you flip it, a Tessa Gladio goes to UMass, most likely, there's not a Gigi Battle on that roster. So you know, whatever you go to afterwards for a lot of these kids is going to be, competition wise at your position, very comparable, or even maybe a step up, or a step, or maybe a more experienced kid, but less talented than a kid at your position. So even my backups, I have a post player going to Iona, Sophia Hickey.
Hmm.
She was going against Stur Ubaka and Sarah Kiki every day in practice. There's no Sarah Kikis in whatever conference Iona's. I think it's in the
Mac.
MAA. Yeah, the
Yeah.
MAC.
Uh huh.
There's no Sarah Kikis there. So she's seeing 6'4" length that can move their feet laterally. Jump out the gym, 6'8" wingspan. Where those kids are going to be, looking at practice a little differently when they go to that level after going against a Vanderbilt commit and a Southern Cal commit. So
Yeah.
so the practice environment is also critical. You might be able to find a public school with five really good players, but who's 6 through 10? 6 through 10 can't give you any resistance in practice, and so
Hmm.
you really never have to empty the tank to dominate a practice. You can uh, you really don't know what it takes until you get to that level. Obviously, every college practice is going to be competitive, and it's going to challenge you no matter who you are when you go from high school to college, because it's a step up. But the best simulation is going to a prep school where you know the 10th man on the floor is going Division 1. So
Hmm.
I think all of that plays a part in a kid's development and just learning how to compete at the level that is demanded for the next level.
Absolutely. And we'll take it even back to last year. And I know you've been paying attention. Well, Zanaya Zealous is at East Carolina, and she was hurt some at DME, so she didn't play as much. But like the potential was there, and I'm getting phone calls like, "Man, we missed out on that one." I was like, "Yes, y'all did.
Yep.
Yes, y'all did." And she has the chance to probably next year. It's going to be her breakout year at East Carolina.
Yep. Yep. And Zanaya was a kid we obviously had huge hopes for. We just She came in with a fracture in her tibia and was out 3 months, and then you're trying to get her to get in game shape in season. And at that time, when she came back, it was around right before Christmas break. Then you give them 6 or 7 days off, and she did an admirable job for the circumstance. It was a kid that you know you can't control injury, and I'm not surprised at all. She's a really good kid. She's obviously got a ton of upside and talent. Great family. Mom and dad are great, supportive people. And so no, I'm not shocked at all that she had a really strong freshman year, and also it was a new step for her. Coming from West Virginia and coming to the prep school circuit her senior year, and the injury didn't help. Uh, Trying to get in shape during the most competitive, challenging part of the season as well was tough for her. But we're not surprised by her flashes of brilliance so far at East Carolina.
Let me ask you this, and this all ties into where we're going. How do you help these kids navigate like these high profile recruiting environments? Because you're going to have the P4s there, you're going to have the mid majors there, you're going to have the low majors there as well. And so for some of these kids, that's what they came for, but in essence, some of this is still new to them. So, how do you help them navigate through this recruiting process when possibly Gino Oriema or Don Staley may come to your practice? How do you help them navigate that?
Yeah, I mean it's challenging, right? Because it's still customer service for these families, and so they come here with an aspiration or a goal in mind and where they can get to, and sometimes going high is not necessarily what's best suited for them. And
Hmm.
Zanaya is a great example. Zanaya could have went in the SEC, she could have went in the ACC, she could have went Big 12. And obviously from my side, of course you'd love to send kids to that level. But credit to her family, her father who played, Damien, and he said, "Hey, look, we're gonna go in where Coach Kim's been relentlessly recruiting her. She's she's shown her face multiple times during the high school season. Um, there's an unwavering belief in her, and they made the right decision. And so I think every kid it's different. Um, Obviously, the money plays a part now too, in the decision making. Um, but you can't compromise your kids' growth and development or who's coaching them over the money or the level. Because for me, you know, I put a lot of time into teaching these kids how to play. Where when it comes to making that college decision, the closest transition from how we play to the next level, if it's very similar, you would prefer your kids to go and take some of the stuff that you have poured into them where it's being valued. What we do doesn't necessarily value, uh, with the team that plays a matchup zone for 40 minutes, right? We play a lot of half court, man to man defense. Um, we switch it up a little bit, but you know, if we're teaching you how to play really good team defense and the man-to-man principles, and then you got to go learn a matchup zone, there might be a transitional period that might have you on the bench playing catch up, or even offensively. We run a lot of, we challenge our kids mentally to be able to execute. So you want to find colleges that value execution and how to run offense. Not every college program values half court offense. We like to run, obviously, first and foremost, but if we're in the half court, we're very functionable. And so I think finding the right programs, the right coaches at each level that have a lot of the same values as myself and my program are kind of schools that we lean towards when it comes to if kids have options. And the more you're in it too, you learn, what a Coach Yo kid looks like, right? You
Yeah.
know, if you got a soft kid that doesn't like contact, don't even send, she'll kill you, right?
Yeah.
If you try to push that kid to her. So, you learn a little bit about each program the longer you're in it and watching the game. Um, and what where kids fit, stylistically. And every conference is different too. So, I think that Sarah going into the Big Ten, her athleticism is going to stand out more than going SEC. I would have been totally fine with her going SEC, but she happened to really like Coach Gottlieb and her staff and what she's building with all those wings and guards that they have and star power. Where she felt like that was the best fit for her. And she's a city girl from Madrid, so LA was pretty similar, right? So I think every kid, when we give them the information on programs, we're looking at opportunity to play. How do you fit offensively? Um, what are your challenges in that conference? What are your challenges with that style? And then obviously money does play a part, but it's usually not the first thing we encourage our kids to look at.
Let me ask this, and this is for people that don't know. You played professionally for some years, and you've also coached on the college level as well. What brought you back to DME to coach at the prep level?
Yeah, obviously it's a family business. So I run the girls, my cousin runs the boys. Um my uncle was a businessman, had a company called DME. It was a mail and marketing company, and my dad was a professional coach. It's funny because I just watched the Jailblazers documentary on Netflix today, and my dad was an assistant coach for Maurice Cheeks in Portland for 4 years, and
Mm.
so those were kind of my role models when I was a kid, and that was not the best role models. But I saw him on the B roll, so I grew up around the game. Started the girls, went to college, played before I started the girls, and actually played after I started the girls. After I coached college, so. Um, I had a 4 year layoff from playing where I started the girls' academy for 2 years. And then I went to FIU and worked under Tierra Malcolm for a year at FIU, and then actually went back to playing. Played in Spain and Argentina. And when I was doing that, I was still the GM, still did the schedule, still did the placement, still did the recruiting. Just wasn't doing the day to day coaching or training over that time. So it's been a full time investment. Haven't really had a vacation. This will be the first summer that I probably take off and get some time away. Now that we've reached the pinnacle of high school basketball, and so I'm planning on taking a little vacation. But yeah, I mean, it's been something that I've enjoyed. Uh, you know, working with young ladies. I've been fortunate enough to go to some colleges that had really good girls programs. So I never looked at the girls as any different than coaching boys. And so it's been a fun ride.
Absolutely. Bobby got a question for you, so I'm gonna bring it up. He said, touch on the day-to-day academic load for the student athlete at DME and the traditional high school experience they get at DME from homecoming, prom, powder puff, etc.
Yeah, so that's a good question. He already knows the answer, but they wake up around 7:15 Monday through Friday, go to breakfast. We feed them 3 meals a day. They go to class at 8, go class until about 11:30, and then they go to lunch, and then after lunch around 12:25 they head to the gym, get taped, get stretched, get loose, get treatment, and we start practice at 1. And we go 1 to 3, and then 3 to 4 Monday, Wednesday, Friday is weights, and then dinners at 6. And if they want to come in at 6 a.m., if they want to come in at 8 p.m., they're more than welcome to come back in and get some extra shots up or conditioning or whatever. Um, from a standpoint of um, their social life, we just had prom this weekend. So the girls really enjoyed that. We usually get an off campus spot to host. We've done it at LPGA golf course. We've done it in New Smyrna, about 15 minutes away, down by the river. And so the kids enjoy homecoming. Usually we stay, do the homecoming dance on the court, at on campus. Have a powder puff game in the preseason. I'm 2-0, coaching against my assistant over the past 2 years. So the girls get to play on the nice soccer field, play powder puff. And they got the traditional high school experience, and I could even argue that they have more of a social life just because their day's done Monday through Friday, by 4 o'clock.
Hmm.
Instead of having practice at 5 to 7, your day's done at 4. Most of these kids' social life now are just on their phone, their Instagram, their TikTok, their Snapchat. And so, by 4 o'clock, for most days, our kids are done with their work in the classroom and on the court and in the weight room, and they can kind of choose to do what they want to do for the rest of the day. And then in season, obviously on the weekends, we're usually playing a lot of games, traveling, and seeing where we measure up against everybody else.
Okay. Okay. Let me ask this. And, I always like, as we get closer to wrapping this up, we know there's a number of preps out there. DME is at the pinnacle right now. Like you said, there's IMG, there's Mount Verd, there's Spire, there's Long Island Lutheran. There's a plethora of others. Why DME?
Yeah. Well, I think that we're going to um, teach the kid how to play first and foremost. I think we're going to teach them how to carry themselves as a pro. We want pros, right? If you're going to say goodbye to your family and live here, we want you to have aspirations to play after college. It's one thing to get a scholarship; it's another thing to keep your scholarship and to play.
Hmm.
And so, if the goal is just to get a scholarship, right? We've you know we can do that, but we want kids that impact programs, so we get more kids to those programs. So I think the development side, teaching them how to play, putting them in structure, where they can look good and look organized and look like they've been coached. So it's easier for college coaches to evaluate them. Um, I would say, obviously, the development piece. I think that um, what we've done in 8 years from a development standpoint is almost unmatched. I would say we've had 11 kids ranked over the past 4 years, um, maybe even 12 now that Sarah's ranked. Um, and I would say about 8 of those 12 came to us not ranked. So we haven't had many come to us with the number next to their name. We haven't had the McDonald's All American caliber kids. We've been able to do a lot with kids that have the right mentality, have the right work ethic, the love for the game, and are coachable. And so the atmosphere at DME is really special. Kids are supportive of each other. We don't have any drama, jealousy, just kids that want to put their head down and work and are a little more blue collar. And so I think that atmosphere um, is second to none. And me being a future owner, I got a full investment in your overall experience. A lot of prep schools, it's their job. They get paid, they punch the clock. Once they finish practice, they walk out the door, and their day's over. I think with me, obviously, from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, I'm going to be fully invested that your overall experience at DME is special, and that you see this as one of the best decisions you've ever made in your life.
I like it. I like it, and I respect what you're doing down there. I've been a fan for some years now. I mean, gosh, it's been 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been
About
five
5 years.
years.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and what you didn't know is even before all this transpired, DME actually came across our radar because we played an AAU tournament down there with my son, and we had brought him down there. We took him over to Daytona State to visit, and then we took him over to Bethune Cookman, and that was 18. That was
Wow.
18. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was 18. So I knew of you at that time, but I didn't know you until
Right.
we reconnected. And I'll give you the funny story about that. That's when you guys first showed off the control room as part
Okay.
of the tour.
Okay.
And so you remember because we were playing 13U at 14U. I'm sorry, it was 13 or 14U, and we played Night Riders for the first time at DME.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So, but no, and what you guys do down there, man, that's just it's top notch. It's top notch, and now the work is starting to show. And big time congratulations for winning Chipotle. That was big. You play on the grind session, another quality circuit as well. So you're doing all the right things that people would expect that didn't know about what prep life is about. From, like I said, the 80 to 90 coaches that are there in September, you know, playing the JUCOs in October during the jamborees, and the other events that are big, and then kicking off your season in November and playing all over the country basically, and then it's who's of tournaments from She Got Game to Mecca, to Chipotle to the grind session. And this is what I named right there in itself. That's on average 15, 20 coaches per game. And when you come here in January, when you came last year, my gosh, it was what, it's about 75 coaches here in Atlanta for that one. I mean, there's so many. You're picking the right events. Let's say that,
Right.
and then
Right.
any other. If the cherry on top is whether it's Cyfair or Gigi playing for her AU team, when you're playing for those shoe teams and you're adding DME to that, that's the blueprint. I mean, it's clear
Yeah.
as day, and it's working. It's
Yeah.
clearly working because all these young ladies are getting what they want. I mean, from Now they're nationally ranked. They're top 100, top 50, on top of a plethora of schools coming down, and now they're offering. And we're not talking. And again, no disrespect, major power four players are wanting these players because now, like you said, they're household names. So when I look at that, I mean, it's just it's that. I mean, you
Yeah.
guys are doing a great job, man, and keep doing your thing. I mean, I know Bobby's a fan. I already know
Yeah,
Bobby's a
Bobby
fan.
gets me in trouble sometimes, man, but I will never tell him to not be himself because it's hard out here for us. We've had a tough time, getting some of those big time kids, and so to have people that like yourself, like Bobby, that have been able to point me in the right direction of some kids that could really benefit from the program and the opportunity and the platform. Is much appreciated, and you're almost you have a you played a part in our success, and so did Bobby, and so I'm very very thankful for people like you guys, and appreciate the unbiased opinions and support. I don't take that lightly or take that for granted. It's been a tough journey. I've enjoyed it a lot, and I am excited about the future, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on the road.
Absolutely. Last question before I let you go. You're not the hunter no more, man. You're the
Yeah.
hunted going into next year. How you gonna handle that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we've always been the team in the past where when we walk in the building, everyone wants us to lose. I've always felt that way, whether that's in the state of Florida. Shoot, there was a game this year where we were getting our butt kicked, and I was looking across the court, and uh, I'll just say it was Legion. Legion was cheering as hard as possible for us to lose. And I was like, damn, I didn't know it was like that. So, we've always had, to me, people hunting us. I think that people want to see us struggle. I think that, we will have to have a whole new team for the most part. We bring back four really nice pieces that hopefully can
Yeah.
build, continue the continuity and what's the expectations and the standard that the seniors have helped establish. And we just got to be ready for all challengers, and just try to control what we can control, is which is our preparation, and how hard we play and how together we are. And I'm looking forward to adding some really special players this offseason.
Oh, I'm sure. You headed out in April and May.
I'm gonna take April off.
I
I'll
am
be
too,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah, yeah.
I
I
am
got to take
too.
April off. I will do May. I'll go to Atlanta for May. I'll probably put a team in the select events, just with a couple of our returners that, are not going to be here in July for AAU, and just
Hmm.
let them get some exposure, let them have a little bigger role
Okay.
in AU than they had during the school year to showcase themselves. And then July I'll definitely be in the Midwest. I'll be making that my rounds,
Yeah.
Indiana, Ohio, Louisville.
Hmm.
See some family in Detroit, and enjoy those 2 weeks or so in the Midwest, trying to hopefully grab a hidden gem.
And so it's funny, Bobby. So, yes. So I will see you partially in May. I'm splitting my time in May between New Orleans and Atlanta. So I'll be at live at Lake Point, but the first part I'll be down in New Orleans for the Capital Cool Classic. They moved it from Birmingham to New Orleans,
Yep.
so I'll be down there for that. Um, June is my team camp, so that's going to be a big one. So the team camp is the beginning of June, and then GHSA is the third week. July is and I'm going to Ohio this year because I'm going to the Midwestern Classic team
Okay.
camp. That's going to be a big one as well. Um, the other big thing for this year, let's see. Of course, we're doing Run for the Roses. We're doing Power 32. We're doing Rock Hill. And at the end of the month, I may come down there and do Orlando for Puma. Is it a
Yeah.
Pumas? Yeah, I may come down there for a Puma at the end of July. So by the time July comes, I'm always beat. By the time I see you, usually in
Yeah.
Rock Hill, I'm usually beat by that time because
Man, we're limping around on the cement, limping, shaking our legs out, trying to see share notes and compare kids, and it's always fun. And
yeah,
I'll probably get down to Orlando too for Puma. They've they're starting to build that up a little bit, and it's
yes,
local.
yeah. So and since they're building it up, I figured I'll probably make that trip down to Orlando to see what it looks like. But that'll be my summer right there. So like you said, April. Well, I went to this past weekend. I went to the Western PA Bruins tip off in Pittsburgh.
Yep.
That's my hometown, so
Yep.
that doesn't count. It counts, but that's I get to go
Yeah.
home for that one. But
Yeah.
this week, yeah, I'm taking off. I'm
Okay.
taking off.
Well, hey, we I always laugh when I think about the Rock Hill when we were in the same hotel in Rock Hill for the USA. That
Yeah.
was those hotels were uh, they were all packed out with the families, and
Yes.
me and you were thugging it out
Had
in
to.
the outskirts, man.
We had no choice. They were all
Oh
booked.
man, yeah, it was. I was ready to get to the gym. The hotel was not my favorite for sure.
Nah, you know what? You do what you
Got
got
the
to do.
job
You
done
get
though.
in and out. Yeah.
Yep.
You already know. Hey man, listen, I appreciate you. I appreciate Bobby and the Rosa as well. Listen, I appreciate you guys commenting, and this will be on YouTube. So even though it was live, most people listen to this on YouTube. They watch the rerun of it. So you know many people get to see this, and I always say, a DME, any other program, always make sure you look for the best things that are a right fit. And DME has a number of the right things going on, and it's a great fit. So when I look at this right here, it's one of those things where people need to know more, because sometimes the public high school is lacking, and they need a DME or they need a prep to push them over the hump to get that exposure or to get that look that they wouldn't get in some of these underserved markets. Let me be clear when I say that, because I think that's where you're going to thrive the most, at these underserved markets where, you know, when we go out and we're in Rock Hill or wherever, a lot of times we scratching our head like, who's that? Never
Yep.
seen her before.
Yep. Yep.
That's how I saw Sutton Villa. And she's 6'6".
Yep.
I
Yep.
saw her right there in Rock Hill, and I was like, okay, what am I missing here?
Yep.
And when I got to talking to mom, I was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
This doesn't make any sense at all. But no, man, we both have a passion for this. Half the time, yeah, we laugh and joking as we looking at players. But the thing I appreciate about you is we can disagree about players.
Yep.
And,
Yep.
you can see something. I'm like,
Yep.
and it's a preference more than anything, and it's
Yep.
also a fit as well. Or I can see a player, you like, I'm like, man, I'm telling you this one right there, and then we can come back months later and be like, hey, you was right on this one. That
Yep.
one's
Yep.
good, or we
Yep.
both say I was wrong. Boy, did that one bomb? And that's the fun of this. Not only the fun of this, but when you have a passion, I always say it's never work. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
absolutely.
Ne-
Absolutely. It's
Never
been
work.
great. And yeah, man, this is my first podcast I've done. So when you asked me to be on it, was I felt obligated to be on yours first because you've always been great to me in my program and have always been a great tool for me to learn more about some of these kids and markets like you said that are underserved. So
Yeah.
it's much appreciated.
Oh no, that's what we're supposed to do, right? I
Yep.
mean, that's all about getting these kids on, and then Louisiana. Wow, gosh, that's a hotbed in itself that a lot of people just are missing the boat on. yes, the local colleges are killing and eating very well, but my thing was there's a lot of good players there that people don't know about, and some of them are, take out the Michaela Williams and the Carolines and all of those top players like that and the Jada Richards. There's some really good players. Like Kristen Narcisse is making a name for herself with South Alabama, but man, when I first saw her, I was like, why don't more people know about her? And
Right.
that was my, like, had I known you at that time, I
Right.
would have been like, man, you need to get that one.
Yeah.
And look, I would
Yeah.
have been just as passionate. You need to get that one. And now I mean, she graduated in 3 years, and what, 2 more years as a grad transfer. She's gonna be awesome.
Yeah. Absolutely.
She,
Absolutely.
she
Those are the kids that we definitely like to find. Nobody knows about them, and we can sneak them in before people find out. So they're your podcast name and all your projects you do are the name is fitting for you.
Absolutely, man. But I see you're getting teased right now about bringing another person on,
Yeah,
bringing another person on the podcast.
that's my 1 year old. It was his birthday during the semifinal game up in Indiana for Chipotle. So
Oh, okay,
we had
okay.
a it was a special weekend for sure. Got to see him turn one, and he got to grab that trophy and kiss it, and he couldn't hold it; it was too heavy. But he turned one, and yeah, she's itching to get him in the gym, and I'm like, let him be a baby. I'm enjoying. He gets older, that means we're getting older. So I don't
Hey,
want
man!
that.
Before you know it, time flies. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Before you know it, they'll be doing what, 8U or 9U or
man. Yeah.
10U. Then the next thing you know, they're in high school. Then you all over the country. Then you really be busy then, because
Oh
now
man. Yeah.
then you'll be trying to do your girl stuff and then trying to keep up with your kid as well.
Yeah. I'm definitely. That's gonna be a battle I'm gonna have to fight.
Very much
And I'm
so.
not looking forward to it. So, but it'll be a good journey too.
Oh, absolutely. Hey, man, I appreciate you coming on as usual. I thank everybody that tuned in tonight. I use this platform. Of course, me and you have a relationship, but my biggest thing is for people. It's the educational piece of this. I get asked so many times. What about this? What about this? What about this? Or how can I get my kid more exposure? And it's bringing you guys on so people can understand, okay, this is an avenue you can entertain. This is another avenue you can entertain, whether it's prep, whether it's JUCO, whether it's D2. Like Coach Carey,
Yep.
you know about IUP. That's
Yep.
one of the best D2 programs in the country.
Yep.
But a lot of people don't know.
Yep.
A lot of
Yep.
people don't know. But if they go to a DME, you have those relationships, or Coach Carey will be calling you like, "Hey, let me get one of those players as
Yep.
well." But it's that connecting all the dots. Even when it comes to when they're asking me about Sci-Fair or anywhere else, and I'm like, no, that's a great program. Look into it. Now, my question is your kid good enough to play there? Because
Correct.
I'm not going to send you just anybody and you be like, hey man, what is this? I'm like, nah, they
Yeah.
can't play there. Or,
Yeah.
if it's a situation where they're okay with playing on the third team if they're not of that talent, if I'm calling you, I'm like, hey man, listen, listen.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
You know how passionate I was when I saw Chicago. I was like, hey man, you need to see this one. But
Yeah.
it's that where you see these type of kids and they don't have that. She had motion going, and it's not.
Yeah.
She had. It was never that. But I was
Yep.
like, I'm telling you. And what did I tell you? I said, if she
Yep.
comes here, she's top 50. And boy, did it play out. Did it
Yep.
play out?
Yep.
I was like, oh man, this is crazy right here. But at, I was okay with putting my reputation on the line because I trusted you and I knew what you were going to do. And because I told that, I was like, man, listen. I was like, this. You go here, she's going to be something. And, for him to send me a text, I'm like, man, thanks. I was like, man, listen, I was like, I'm just happy it all worked out because by the time it was the middle of her junior year, I was like, yeah, they're good. She's going to take
Yeah,
off. She's
yeah,
going to take off. And, it was smooth sailing from there. And then, then it was you met Bobby and, you got
yep.
that connection there. And it's, I'm hands off now because the pipeline's there now. I'm back out on the road somewhere.
Yeah, man. No, she it was a blessing. Great family.
Yeah.
Mom moved down here.
Hmm.
Her little brother, her other little brother was here for a year at DME. So, great family, great kid, and just super proud of her and
Yeah.
excited for her next chapter and all the rest of the girls. So, yeah, I'm gonna have to get the Big Ten network next year. I got about three going in there, and
Yeah, you do, man.
so
Man.
I'm excited about it, and hopefully can get to a game or two or get to the Big Ten tournament. That might be what I need to do.
Yeah, I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try and catch some one of their games. I'm sure Rutgers will come down here somewhere in the South and play,
Yeah.
and I'll try and catch them with my media credential and get close and get an interview with her and just smile as she's talking to the media, man.
Yeah, man. Nah, she's ready for it, so it's gonna be great. So
Absolutely. So hey man, listen, I appreciate you coming on tonight, man. When you come on this podcast, you consider family, so this won't be the last time you
yeah,
come on, you know what I
nah,
mean?
for sure, for sure. I appreciate it, man, and looking forward to seeing you in about a month.
Yes, sir. All right, man. You take it easy, okay?
All right, man.
All
Thanks.
right. Listen, that's my guy right there. I mean, just like we're talking right now is exactly how we'll be talking in another month or so. I mean, we're looking at players and we're talking about situations on this player or that player, and that's what I love the most about this because for me, I can stay in the gym all day looking at players, and I get the biggest thrill out of seeing players that don't people know about just yet. I mean, of course, we like watching the big games or going to the EYBL court and watching the big matchups because those are fun as well. But it's also going to court 35 and finding someone like a Bobby Emerald Parker at Run for the Roses. I did a Bob Huggins. I was going to the bathroom and I seen an Emerald Parker, a 6'4" young lady that's from northern Louisiana, and there was no by. It was by sheer luck. I had no idea she was from Louisiana, but I just so happened to walk by and I was like, "Who is that?" At 6'4", banging like that, and I was like, "Why don't more people know about her?" And she took off. I mean, she ended up going to Arkansas Little Rock, and now she's at Texas A&M. But it's finding those kids, whether it's Louisiana, Pittsburgh, or Arkansas, or rural Mississippi or Alabama. It's getting the pleasure of finding those kids, and if it works out, helping them along their journey. But that's why I love this Hoops Hitting Gems. I think the name is always fitting. So that'll do it for tonight. Thank you guys as usual. We'll be back next week with another great show. We'll get the guests lined up probably by the end of the week, and we'll announce it then. But until then, everybody enjoy themselves. It's live period for you young ladies coming up this weekend. Play hard. Um, don't do anything out of character. Play within yourself. You get noticed, you get noticed. If not, you have a couple other live periods to work on what you need to get better at. All right? That'll do it for tonight. I'm your host, David Jones. Good night.